Hi again. So thank you for your time today. I will start right away what we will do and give you some background as well. But first, I want to start with who I am. So, like Kim said, I'm a community council member at Ed3 DAO. It's one of the DAOs that I was involved in the last few years. And I'm also a PhD student at UCSB. My research focuses on emerging technologies and speculative education, and I'll briefly talk about what they are. But Kim already mentioned what some of the focus areas that I'm also focusing on, mainly AI and blockchain. I'm also a TA. It's a grad student responsibility, at least at the United States. But what I teach this year is statistics and R programming language as a TA. The relevance is this: I'm using a customized. I told you, Kim, I create a GPT for everything. So I created the GPT for this too. So I will be the teaching assistant. My GPT will be my assistant to teach a programming language. And this sparked an idea for me. So I'm going to start a new project by October where I will be teaching technical skills like statistics, coding, math, together with AI, because I realize it's a huge opportunity for people who are not coming from a technical background can learn the skills with the help of AI. So that will be Luna Skills is my project to do that, or is my attempt to do that. So that's a little bit about me. Let's talk about today's agenda. So I'll give you some ideas about like what is this all about, like background, and we did a similar research in summer with a group of students, fourth and fifth graders. So I'll share you guys with some experience, what we learned from that experience, and then we will have you in breakout rooms to get your hands dirty and see what you come up with. And then if we have time, we will do a brief debrief session. So the next thing, okay, so before we start, I want to share this with you. And Kim, if you can share this link on the chat, I would appreciate it. So this is the worksheet that I will have you kind of like start thinking right now as I'm going through the presentation. But basically, I will share with you with a GPT that I created specifically with board games that I train. And this is the worksheet that might help you think through as a group. So I said with the learning objective, these are like guidelines. These are not rules. So you can shape them in any way you want it in your group. And then the audience here, I thought about like K-12, but if you're interested in a larger group, you can mention that to the GPT as well. Game setting could be anything. In most of the cases, I use the actual geography. In summer, for example, I want this game to be present in Santa Barbara, but you might want to consider a historical place or a out of space place. And there's game type. Perhaps if you're not familiar with game design and development, game type could be, there are two broad categories, collaborative and competitive. And collaborative, they come together and solve a problem, and competitive, they race to the finish line. Materials part, think of your own educational environment or your potential educational environment and mention what are the things that you have access to. Markers, papers, or other types of things. Those are the materials. And finally, visual elements. In general, I ask learners and youth to create their own visuals, and I'll show you some examples what they do. But I also use AI to give some inspirations. So you can also use the AI to give some inspirations. So I leave this worksheet somewhere, start working on this worksheet at the back of your mind as I go through this presentation, because you might find it helpful as we go through it. Okay, so a little digress, going back to my presentation, the rest of the presentation. So what I mean by speculative literacy, so especially when we are working with youth, some of the main themes that we encounter to share with them, like there's an ongoing climate crisis, or in some parts of the world, there's an ongoing poverty or war and conflicts, or other social justice issues they are currently being faced on at a very early age. And so most of the time, the conversation around climate crisis, around this like anxiousness about future, or like this fear or anxiety. So speculative literacies takes to another level and says, let's imagine a world together, all of us, that is perhaps like technologically advanced, but at the same time environmentally sustainable and socially just, where everyone has some sort of equity and have something to share and respect it with, and live their life with dignity. If those are the values, let's imagine that world first without thinking about the current or imminent problems, and then try to imagine backwards from that world, how we can get to that world without focusing on the problem. Let's focus on the hope and the imagination that we have, that we created together. So some of the times in the literature, researchers call this like, let's talk with youth about the future that they want to be a part of. Not they have the responsibility to solve the problems of previous generations, but like what kind of future that they want to be a part of, what they want to see in the future. And of course, this includes, social justice, environmental sustainability, and technological advancement. So this is speculative literacies and the projects that I will share with you around this topic. That's why I wanted to mention this. The next thing that I want to talk about, like sorry, it says Game James, but it should be Game Gems. game 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 Gems as a learning medium. So there are a lot of mediums that we can use in education. This could be, anything that multimedia. I specifically preferred games because games has this capacity to increase more agency in the youth, leadership and teamwork together. But I also like board games more than digital games, because in digital games we have a lot of access issues. Like some of the youth do not have technological infrastructure to access, or like technical literacy to write code or whatsoever. This, in addition, there is also big generational gaps in when we consider digital games. Like the games that I played is really have nothing to do with the games that my son is playing. However, in board games, there are like people understand board games. There are more. They have a more intergenerational sharing, collaboration nature, and it's more accessible because you can literally create a micro board game with just pen and paper instead of a digital game. And in addition to that, in board games, you have youth as not just gamers, but also game developers. So it's more agency. They can decide what kind of game that they want to create together there. But still, it's not easy. We still need to know what game mechanics is, what game design is, some sort of like prior knowledge and research. We still don't have it, and that's where AI comes in. But before I go into that, I just want to shout out to my research mentee, Angela Zhang. Angela worked with me in the summer. She's a high school student, and we created this research together. So some of the items in this research are literally taken from her beautiful work, and she's about to apply college. I will support him, but this is she's a part of this research. So, like I said, AI's role here, what's new? Like, what's new then? What can AI do for us? So we can create GPTs or other forms of AI bots. The only reason that I mentioned GPT is because that's what I use, but there might be other versions of this. But AI bots right now, the generative AI bots that we have, are very good at procedural knowledge, things like mathematics, codings, or mechanics, including game mechanics. And they can easily do a research. So that's help with the narrative. And I'll show you some narrative examples as well. But basically, this is what they are good at. So my idea is to use AI, what it's good at, while helping you to create their own games. So following this vision, we created several GPTs, trained them, customized them, used them some games research, and also train them in the sense that the language, the tone, the bilingual structures, simplifications, things like that. We train them, and probably we can. I'm happy to share how you can train yours as well. But that's what we had during the summer. And we had a group of students who are coming to our summer camps, and we sit with them and ask them to, why don't we create a game of your own choosing? So one group choose to create a game because they are members of the Santa Barbara community. They wanted to see a future that houselessness or homelessness is not a problem in Santa Barbara. That's why they created a game called Path to Home. And in this game that they created together with AI, the main characters are going through some education and employment opportunities and then build back their lives as they approach the end of the game. In this case, students choose the narrative. Students said, like, this is the game that we want to create. And they had a lot of like interaction with the board. The picture that you see at the bottom is the board that they created. And the picture that you saw up is created by the AI bot. So they get the inspiration, but they didn't follow whatever the AI is saying, which is good. Also, what else? Oh, we had a lot of e-engagement problems. So as educators, we are so enthusiastic about AI. Oh, this is going to change this and that. But for their world, at least this group of students, it's not that something that much they're interested in. One thing that they mentioned to us is like written communication is not their preferred way of, they didn't say their preferred way, but they are not that much interested in writing back and forth with a bot. What happened in this case with this group is one of the students take the leadership and the others followed. So that shaped the group's dynamics. And once they see that she is Gabby was taking the lead, the rest of them followed her and created the whole game. So that's how we solve the engagement problem. But it's a common problem. And I think this is something you might face when you engage youth with this AI tools, at least the text-based ones. This is another group. They did the similar process, the same AI bot, but this time they didn't come up with a narrative. AI came up with the narrative on this one. They wanted to create a more pet-friendly UCSB campus. This group was more hesitant to communicate with AI. They didn't know some of the words that it used, but they were hesitant to ask it to. So we had to do more hand-holding, and we didn't have a leadership situation like with the previous group. So we realized that this is not really that much engaging. They finished the game faster, but in terms of like the learning games and learning outcomes that we expect them to have was not there. So so this tells us something. So we need to find more ways, like just having a chatbot that they can interact with AI, tablets and else is not enough for them to come together. Perhaps there might be other ways. We are still researching it, but that's another experience that you might consider. So that's the other piece. I will share you some limitations of using chatbots. One of them I already mentioned, text-based. The second thing is when we start to communicate with the chatbots that we created, we realize that they are becoming more and more talking about similar things. They are not diverging from the previous discussions. So there's this convergence happening. So one way to deal with this, asking it to be more creative. You can literally ask a chatbot to be more creative. I really don't need to take this route. Can we take another route? The other one is we provide limited data in the sense that as far as I can remember, we could only upload 12 documents to the customized GPT because that's their limitation. So it's not like one-stop shop. So we still need some more expertise in the topics if needed, and there are inconsistent responses. So with inconsistent responses, you can, if you read the documentation related to ChatGPT or other AI bots, everybody says like sometimes they may say some stuff that doesn't make sense. we don't think it's a problem from an education perspective, because you can take these inconsistencies and use for critical thinking skills. Like you can ask students, why do you think there's an inconsistency here, and which one you prefer, and then it becomes a debatable conversation. So I don't think this is necessarily a problem, but it's certainly a limitation. Without further ado, these are the limitations, but I also share with you what we will do again. I want to stop for a minute because I've been told that sometimes I speak so fast. So I want to stop for a minute and let you think through, reflect for like 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And if you have any questions, please stop me and let's talk about your question. You can also write in the chat box as well. Cool. If that's the case, what I would like to do now is to introduce you to our board game assistant, Edco. So you can have the link, this custom GPT that I created for today's session. I train them with the material that I have with the board games. Kim, would you be able to share the? Oh, thank you, Kim. So let's make sure that you have access to this chatbot first. Oh, how did I recruit the students? Yes, thank you so much. That's a great question. So we are lucky. We are doing a summer camp, and this was a part of the summer camp. And when they are enrolling to the summer camp, also we ask for consent for parents that we can do some extracurricular activities like this. That's how we get the consent and recruit the students.
Can I ask you, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Was the summer camp like for the whole summer, or did they sign up just for this?
Oh, no, it's not for full summer. It was 4 weeks, and it's a literacy summer camp. So this activity was part of one of the literacies. So they had multiple different activities. This was just one of them.
And the kids got to choose to be a part of it?
Kids, no, we designed the program together. So this was one of the program for 4th and 5th graders. We had 1st, 2nd, and 3rd graders, but we wanted to work with the 4th and 5th graders. So they had other options, but every week they had a different activity, and this was a 2 weeks activity on their program.
Okay, so every kid that signed up was doing it. They didn't get to choose. Yeah, I've had that problem where if the kids didn't choose it, they don't have the motivation.
Engage most. Yes, I agree. And that's a problem. Yes, very good point.
And one last question, and I'll let you keep going. Did you work on this with any older age kids, or so far only with this age group?
Right now, only for this age. But I'm considering maybe I should go with the high school, or at least maybe like college students.
Yes, and that's what I'm doing. I started with middle school, and I found there's some limitations to their cognitive capacities in some ways, but if they were partnered with older kids, I think there'd be a lot of synergy and fun that could happen as well. So, okay, I'll let you go.
Okay, thank you. Well, we can discuss this further. I just saw that we have an issue with the GPT. Let me just quickly double check. Wonderful. So what I would like to do, let's see how many of us here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Am I correct, Kim? So we have groups of 4. So we will just randomly assign you to breakout rooms, and I will stop by each breakout room. But what I would like you to do is to look at the worksheet, but get engaged with the GPT itself and see what you can come up with. Decide a topic that you want to create a game with. What's important here, I would choose something that is not too complicated to discuss, something that you know or like easy to discuss, so you see how the mechanics work with GPT rather than going into the details of the topic. And then perhaps later on you can use it for something else. So before we do the breakout rooms, do you guys have any questions like about the activity? It's gonna take like maybe like 10 to 15 minutes. What I would like you to do to come up with be together with your group and create a game or a game template of your liking, whatever you decide. And you can use the worksheet that I shared with you. Any questions?